to a new episode of the Hidden Gems podcast. Today here, a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Kuberan, who is part of the Cypher Wallet. He's an entrepreneur and has a very deep background in fintech and the payment space prior to even crypto. Tell us about your journey into the crypto space. You've been doing a lot of stuff outside crypto in the traditional Web2 space. So talk us through that a bit.
I was a founder until 2015 in India. And since then, I moved to the West Coast, worked for a few startups, then Amazon, Coinbase. Coincidentally, like 7 years of my experience before I started this company has been very much deep in fintech. And to be very specific, we've been building integrations with banks. Like at Amazon, we were actually launching business credit card in partnership with American Express. So we were building like technical integrations with Amex. And in my previous company that I worked for called Zenefits, we were building payment platform, building ACH integrations with like a couple of like few banks, right? Even like Silicon Valley Bank. And also like Coinbase had a very similar experience. Though it was a very crypto company, my job profile there was very specific to like building integrations with banks. And the interesting connecting the dots backward kind of story for me from all this experience is that I always used to be frustrated the way the banking institutions work when it comes to technology, right? There's a slightly different take on like what other people talk about in crypto, because I'm always fascinated about leverage that technology gives to businesses. Like even when internet happened, right? The fact that it did break physical boundaries gave infinite leverage for companies like Amazon to take like book sales online, right? That became $1 trillion opportunity in e-commerce, right? And I believe whatever efficiency that crypto is adding, let's not even use the word crypto, like blockchain is adding to like the fundamental financial infrastructure that we are seeing at an early stage is going to be a huge leverage compared to the technologies that are powering the banking integrations that I have seen in the last 7 years, right? And a very small example of that is all of these internet companies have broken physical boundaries. But if you look at all these fintech products or even like financial products, it is always coming with like physical boundaries. It could be for like regulatory reasons, like legacy reasons, right? And the moment these physical boundaries get broken and the technology leverage that blockchain provides, I believe this will unlock like an infinite opportunity at the scale of internet, right? I'm purely talking from a technology leverage, the way businesses are going to run. Uniswap, 500 lines of code serving fintech users in like 200 countries. That was never possible. That's the part that I got excited about in crypto. And that's what got me into crypto. Since then, I've been a curious learner, a long way to go. That's when I committed myself, okay, I'm going to spend my next decade doing something in this space, no matter what, if that answers your question.
What was the inflection point? So you had a comfortable job. You have a family. You just like myself. You're Indian, so family. You can't tell them I'm working for an unprofitable or a pre-revenue startup. That's you're almost unemployed or unemployed.
That's true.
So how did you have so much conviction to quit your job and start a company? Like where did that energy come from?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. And this answer to this question will not be much related to crypto, but it'll be mostly related to my personal ideologies and like how I look at money and so many other things, right? I mean, to your point, I'm originally from India, right? So it's always been like economic struggle has been part of the family. Money was always looked at in a different way, right? Like the moment we got into tech industry, high salaries were all attractive, right? But I think one of the things that I realized after spending a few years in tech industry is the fact that you build wealth through equity. It's the same with like if you go for a job at Amazon or you become a founder, right? Over time, I just realized, okay, initially you just make some money in like tech. You can buy a BMW car, buy a nice home, whatever you want. And over time, you realize that, okay, this is not what really brings me happiness, right? So it's a lot of very personal journey about like how I looked at money. My inflection point was like, okay, I'm in a very high paying salary. What can I do with this money? It's not giving me time freedom because it was a stressful job, right? The time was so demanding, right? I neither had freedom or time. So this extra money that this job gives is probably making me buy better homes. But like, why? So I'm at a point where I started looking at, okay, so you still want to play that high leverage game by holding equity, but playing the long-term game where you get more time freedom. That was my inflection point, right? Like when I saw this opportunity in crypto, I didn't like really saw that, oh, this is an amazing problem. Let me go solve, right? I rather said, there's going to be so much problems here. Let me go in and spend my time. But I want to live a life for the rest of the decade or something where I don't have to sell my time. I don't have to like push towards, okay, I'm just climbing up this corporate ladder. Rather, I want to like have this freedom with time and at the same time focus on high leverage games, right? Which I believe is a very powerful thing in founder. Most importantly, being a founder in the Silicon Valley or on the West Coast, because I've been a founder before. Like this is not the way founders are in India, right? I know there is a huge boom in startup ecosystem in India, but the culture is so different there. And I'm so fortunate to say I'm in the Silicon Valley or on the West Coast and learning how startups are built, how much experimenting happened, right? Like even like today, I'm a funded startup, right? We are a pre-product market fit. Like we are experimenting, but I'm taking an okay salary that funds my lifestyle here. I've never seen startups like this when I was a founder first time. The first time I was a founder back in India, full time, I was drawing $100 a month in salary. I was just living $100 a month in India. So it was completely different, right? Right now, I don't have to make any compromises. I have a very decent life. Of course, I don't have a large home, large cars, but I'm happy with what I have, right? So that was my true inflection point, Ganesh, if that answers your question.
No, it's a fantastic, beautiful story. So let's talk about the present. I want to know about this particular idea with Cypher. What is the approach or the philosophy that you have with building this company? Because I know you come from Zenefits, and the Zenefits DNA has rolled into Rippling.
Yeah, I really love answering this question. I really like the fact that you actually use Zenefits as a reference here. I'm a big believer in compound startups, right? So to your point, my current philosophy around this is like a launch pad of what I think could be the future of this industry in first place. I see a huge leverage with this technology, but I have some ideas around how the future is going to look, but nobody can truly predict the future. So I'm just operating with an assumption that I want to be alive in this industry, no matter what, right? I'll figure out what I want to do. But to be very precise on where we are today, of course, we are building a wallet, right? Very generically, but if you dig a little deeper on how we are operating today, fundamentally, I think the consumer experience on like how Web3 happens, it's so easy to say it's broken, right? Everybody says that, but the question here is what would you do around it, right? And our thesis around that is there are certain things that are traditionally happening without Web3 that are enabled in better way in Web3, and we are following those DApps and trying to enable the consumer experience for that, right? And the most use case for that is not even DApp, it's actually fundamentally self-custody. Like I'll just give an example, right? As a wallet, one of the things that we have in private beta is a crypto card, right? Like you can just connect your MetaMask or Cypher Wallet and just instantly off-ramp from any chain, Cosmos EVM, with the click of a button. The target user here is people who get paid in USDC across the world, right? That's happening. Like earlier, when people used to contract across the globe, the payment mechanism always used to be wire transfer, a lot of hoops to jump. The conversion fee is really bad, right? And the moment this USDC, people are getting paid in USDC, that itself is unlocking a new consumer experience that needs to be enabled, right? If you're getting paid in USDC, I'll give an example. In India, if you need to buy USDC, if the Google dollar rate is 82 rupees, you have to pay like 89 rupees to even buy USDC. So there is a huge gap in the way the pricing works with all this money transfer when you deal with crypto, right? And like the user experience is a long way to go. I'm just giving an example of it, right? So I always believe in talking to users and write code the way Combinator style, right? You don't have to think about your competitors. That's the best thing about being an early stage in the industry. Like you're not going to be killed just because there's competition. You just build companies by talking to users, understanding what are the problems, because that's the insight you don't get from articles, you don't get from Twitter. Only if you like build something and really go talk to users, you really build that muscle of, okay, these are the problems that people are facing. And I think that is a huge compounding power in the long run. All the products that we build are like experimental bits and pieces with insights that we gain, like building a bridge, aggregator, blah, 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 right? But in my perspective, the winning equation is not here that, oh, you're building a wallet, you're building a bridge. It's nothing to do with it. It's about how well you understand your users, how well you like understand your problem statement, and how well you're catering to that problem is what I believe in. Even I don't consider myself an expert in crypto. I'm still learning, right? But the best part is I'm learning it on the ground, talking to actual users. I don't read newspapers. I don't read articles to learn crypto. I just learn this from my users. And that's where we are in terms of how we are building about the company. To summarize this to your point, I look at this as like a launch pad to what the future of this company could be. And I truly believe in compound startups. That's why you'll kind of see we are spraying and praying on a lot of different solutions in this problem space, starting from a wallet. But I think it's a long way to go. And I truly believe in the power of compounding.
So let's dig into Cypher as it is. What is it today? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? Maybe share that journey of getting this company off the ground. I believe you guys went through Y Combinator. How was that experience? So let's go through those bullet points.
When I started this company, this was in like September or October 2021. I was still working at Coinbase. I was building a prototype of like what a wallet would look like. And interesting part was I was actually initially prototyping a centralized bridge, because back then bridges were like in a nascent stage. Even I think even now we are still in early stage, but in 2021. And one of the things that I pitched to inside Coinbase, can we build this as a part of Coinbase 10% project, which is very similar to Google 20% project, where you can do stuff on your side. Brian Armstrong said we should go build this into a 10% project. But parallelly, I spoke to a few people I worked with at Amazon, even at Coinbase, and said, I'm thinking about building this. What's the best way to do it? And what I realized was within a week, a lot of people I worked with decided to invest if I build this. So within a week, we raised like a 700 or 800K in like friends and family. I think it's mostly a phenomenon of bull market, to be very honest. But that's the thing, right? I got very lucky there, right? Stars aligned. I truly believed in something, and like people were willing to invest. And that's when I decided, okay, it cannot get better than this. Let me just quit my job, right? And then I applied to Y Combinator, right? I basically didn't bank too much on Y Combinator. I just decided I'll just continue to build the company no matter what. But after I got into Y Combinator, my biggest takeaway from there is a lot of people say Y Combinator is not crypto savvy. I agree with a lot of these things, but I still wouldn't have swap that for some other experience, because the best thing about Y Combinator is there's a lot of wrong outsiders perspective about Y Combinator, that it's like an invite only thing. If you're being part of it, it's a prestigious thing. But in reality, what I felt was it's a very brutal program that puts you through, which like made me unlearn a lot of bad habits I picked up at corporates. That's my biggest takeaway, right? Oh, when you come from corporates, I've been an engineering leader. Oh, you always think about product strategy. Let's go invest for like 2 years in this, right? All these blah, blah, blah things. Yeah, sorry.
Let's do an offsite. Let's do an
offsite, exactly, right? And I've enjoyed doing that. I've been good at doing that. But the moment I got to Y Combinator and looked at it from outside and like got this perspective from great builders, even when like Brian Armstrong came to Y Combinator in our batch and gave a talk, it was completely different, right? So that's when that was my aha moment. Oh, this is how early stage companies are being built, right? I'm a third-time founder, and I wish I had this ecosystem back then, right? So I think Y Combinator is this amazing selection of like-minded founders. Most importantly, like this program that makes you understand how early stage products are built. They just have this beautiful thing: talk to users and write code. Nothing else matters. You don't build products by like going for 2 years. You can just build a product in a week. Just launch. You have nothing to lose, right? And you iterate and learn. So I would say it was an amazing experience for me in unlearning a lot of very important bad habits I picked up from corporates. Even after I left Y Combinator, I still had a lot of these bad habits. Like if I look back now, that 1 year of journey post Y Combinator was still sticking to me, right? Oh, you have to like fix this, because these things doesn't make sense in a startup. So I think that's where Y Combinator was an amazing experience, right? I think it preps you for a lifetime on like how you build early stage startups, right? And I was so excited to take that ethos and apply to crypto, because I personally thought that's a deadly combination. Because in crypto, I mean, I'm a big fan of a lot of builders, but one of the things that I see lacking here is people rarely work backwards from users. Or you go build a protocol, right? And say, oh, there is a small bug in protocol that like brings your bridge down. But I have fundamental questions on, if you are doing a bridge, why do you have $1 billion in liquidity when you're only serving $10 million in volume, right? It's not capital efficient. You're putting users' funds at risk. But if you just talk to users and understand, they just come up with these problems, right? So I just thought talking to users and write code was a low-hanging fruit to like go build a company like crypto. That's my take on it.
And so I've been a fan of Paul's essays for many years, almost a decade now. I mean, he's written a lot over the years, but there's one particular essay that sticks out to me, which even today at Covalent, we have a startup-like feel for new products, because finding product market fit is this elusive lightning in a bottle moment. You just can't, you can't conceptualize product market fit. It's hand-to-hand combat. It's like, it's very difficult. In regular life, they talk about capital allocation, but Paul has this knack of distilling it down into a single thing, which is I think it was like 7% weekly growth or 20% monthly growth. And that should be the only focus. And if you have that consistently over X number of weeks, then you have product market fit. And it comes down to like, are people like sticking around? It compresses the retention equation. It compresses the customer acquisition equation, messaging, not just product market fit, but market messaging fit. Like everything is just distilled here. So that is my favorite essay that he's written, that startups equals growth. And, I probably should print it and frame it or something. But what out of the lessons that you've learned from YC is your favorite that even today, no matter what startup, forget it. It's like these lessons are universal. Like what is your favorite essay or lesson from YC?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. What we just shared is actually already amazing, right? If I have to pick something else, I would definitely say talk to users and write code is my biggest takeaway from Y Combinator, because it actually again and again talks about bias for action, right? You might have the best possible idea until you actually validate your hypothesis. None of this matters. And when you hit the rubber on the road, you always learn from the iteration, right? So you're just experimenting and like talking to users is a big part of that. It's so easy to say that, but it's very, very hard to do that, right? Like simple things like Y Combinator even discourages running surveys to understand users, and like a lot of basic things which broke a lot of my myths, right? Because talking to users is a very broad thing, but if you dig deeper on that, my biggest takeaway is I had a lot of myths around talking to users. I thought I'd run a survey and to understand the users, and they always believe in one-on-one with the users, right? And never subsidize your product for early users. That's something that I've never like understood, right? But that's an amazing takeaway, because they basically said you have to charge really high for early users so that you set a really high bar, right? And that's a right litmus test. And never go to your friends, because friends might use your product just because they want to be nice to you, right? And always make users pay. Because you go to one of your users and say, oh, what do you feel about this? And they'll give ideas. Oh, this is amazing. I'll use this. But the moment you make them transact, that's when the reality hits. So all of my biggest takeaways are like still like summarized really well in a lot of Paul Graham essays, but like talking to users and like how you talk to users and what insights you derive from there are like amazing. I can go on and on. Even simple things like being a good product person is like being a therapist, because when you talk to your users, they're not going to tell you what they want you to build. They're just going to rant about their problems, just like going to a therapy, right? And as a therapist, you should be really smart and understanding like what exactly is the actionable thing you can do there to solve that problem, right? And the ambiguity of that problem is really broad. When you talk to like 100 users, and you will get a lot of confusing signals. So you as a product person, the ambiguity is not in like running a survey. Can you talk to 50 users and condense what you heard from that rant of 50 users and converting that into a product? That's the most hardest problem. You don't have to do flashy things. You just do simple things and stick to it. That's what it takes. So that's why people say, find first 100 users who love the product. If you do that, that itself is a huge inflection point. Without doing that, you can just go build whatever you want. You can build a protocol, you can build a DApp, you can build a wallet, none of that matters. That's what is building conviction for me in running this company. We already have more than 100 users who love the product, right? I don't care about what my monthly active users are compared to other wallets, because in this industry, survival itself is going to be key, right? To answer your question, my biggest takeaway is talking to users and write code. And the talking to user part is my biggest learning from there. You just do very basic things, nothing fancy there.
Incredible. I think there's one more point that is adjacent to what you're saying, which took me, unfortunately, years. I wish I had the opportunity to go through YC. Maybe I could have short-circuited this. But you talk to a lot of users and they tell you the symptoms that they're seeing, right? They don't even tell you the problem. So you ask your 5 whys, go through the ladder of like problem statements, and then you figure out the problem, and then you build a beautiful solution to that problem. And then you go and ping them and say, hey, this is ready. Are you willing to pay, whatever, $500 a month, right? Because they said this is like a big problem. And then you hear nothing, right? You're just ghosted. And the other thing I've learned from that is that the problem is important, but is it the top 3 problems that they have in their mind? And if it's not the top 3 problems, so in the context of everything else, you might have the best, cheapest, fastest solution to a problem, but the problem is like the 6th thing on their list. It's not really worth solving on their mind. So it's not just your problem and your solution, but it's in the context of whatever is happening in their life that's so interesting. So I always go in and ask, like, what are the top 3 problems? And if this is not in the top 3, you should just like end that conversation there or pivot your product to solve those top 3 problems, right? It's a huge kind of deal there. I wasted so many years trying to like figure it out. Okay, let's talk about Cypher now. What is Cypher? What are you guys doing? Let's talk about the product experience.
So we have a mobile wallet, right? Which is very similar to what MetaMask or all these mobile wallets are, non-custodial. You just import your private key. And we have a first-party bridge that we built ourselves that's inbuilt into these wallets. And then we have a DApp, app.cypherwallet.io, which lets you experience all the advantages of like the way you visualize Cosmos and EVM portfolios, bridging and everything through a DApp by bringing in any wallet you have. I know wallet has a lot of assumptions around, okay, wallet has to solve key management and all these things. I don't hold too much on to all these things on what the standard definition of wallet is. I just go to my users and I always believe that, oh, all of these users believe custody is a solved problem. I know there's a lot of inventions around custody that's going on, but like everybody's happy with what they have with MetaMask, but what do they not like with MetaMask? That's why we build this app.cypherwallet.io, right? Where it's a DApp experience, where you don't have to all of a sudden blindly trust us with your private keys. You have your ledger, you have your MetaMask, but like experience other advantages we have in a consumer experience. And that's the DApp, right? Where you can actually bridge and do everything. And most importantly, we also have this crypto card that is very invite only, right? Due to like regulatory reasons and stuff, we're just keeping it invite only and not go big on in the US, right? But that's something that I'm really passionate about because I mean, one, like I've been doing a lot of credit cards and stuff in the past. And I think this is very important piece of the company because that is actually connecting the real world to crypto. I just gave an example of users getting paid through crypto and stuff, right? So in the future, I'm just visualizing our company very much like a Web3 neobank, but in a global way. I don't think anybody has even got any close to solving that, right? And it's going to be very fragmented in my perspective, just like the way banks are. There is no one bank that like serves the entire world, right? So that's the current state of the product, but in the near future, we are seeing ourselves becoming like a Web3 neobank. But we still will be touching a lot of other areas around the way, fact that we're building our own bridge, right? And even like the way we let the users visualize their DeFi portfolio, right? And the reason why we're building these bits and pieces, like these are different problems that our existing users are facing that we want to solve for them, right? So it's very fragmented, and I believe it has to be fragmented in early stage. But the way this will all converge is we might very well become like a neobank that powers users across the world. And that's why even with our private beta with our card, we have like users we invite from Indonesia, Nigeria, just to understand like what those users are. And like I'm learning amazing things that I don't read online. Oh, why do you even use crypto? And they have amazing reasons, right? And so we're going behind these anecdotal examples of why users are using our product and doubling down on that in like different pieces. So that's where we are. So if you really want to try our product today, go to the App Store, look for Cypher Wallet, or go to app.cypherwallet.io. That's a great place to start to see. And also an interesting convergence that we see in the near future is we're one of the very few wallets that properly supports both Cosmos and EVM. I'm not trying to take a call here saying, oh, Cosmos is the future or anything, right? I'm just going by the facts. Today, EVM is where the majority of the TVL and the user activity is. And then there's a lot of interesting developer activity happening in like Cosmos and stuff, even like DYDX going to Cosmos. And if you have to enable these users, you need to have like the right customer experience that bridges both. And we believe in a truly multi-chain world in the future, right? And we're building towards that.
Let's talk about use cases that you have. I'm very passionate about the wallet space. I have some strong opinions about it, which this podcast is obviously not the venue for it. But do you think the super app kind of steam that's happening right now is the answer? Or are you going to have like a Cypher for gaming, a Cypher for like DeFi, a Cypher for NFTs, vertical specific use cases? Like, how are you seeing this pan out in the next couple of years? Obviously, DeFi has product market fit today. NFT probably has product market fit, but are you seeing that kind of thing? Or do you think like a horizontal WeChat model is what's going to pan out?
I'll put a disclaimer before I answer this question, right? I'm always a true believer of, okay, it's very hard to predict the future. It's always like talk is cheap, actions are hard, right? So I'll just put that disclaimer. So most probably I'm going to be wrong the way they say it, but based on what I have collected in the last couple of years of building this space, I'll share my perspective on that. So I come from this traditional background of working with banking institutions and all that, right? So I personally believe there's not going to be one size fit all wallet at all. I know tech industry has this like winner takes all and all this very generic statements. I don't believe that's going to happen in like wallet. And the reason why I believe that the level of breadth that we are seeing in like crypto, I believe it's to the scale of internet, right? It's like asking, oh, is some single app going to own the entire internet, right? I mean, in the past, people have spoken about this when it comes to browser and all that. But the value capture really did not happen in the browser. It happened through like e-commerce businesses and a lot of other things. So we don't even know how the future is going to evolve, the way the product experience is going to happen, because the fact that the browser was part of internet itself was like an evolution. People never like predicted that or anything, right? Because initially it was like, oh, the homepage is the key in browsers, in internet, like the homepage where Yahoo has all these things. You are the winner. Then the search came in. So when it comes to wallet, the way I think about this is, I think it's too broad. And I personally think it's even broader than internet. And I'll tell you why, right? DeFi has product market fit, but we only scratched the surface there, right? The moment you start tokenizing real world assets, I'm personally a big believer in tokenizing real world assets, because that's going to unlock whatever I just said about like financial infrastructure and what powers the existing system. And if you talk about NFT, I'll give a simple example of NFT, right? In India, I'm from India, right? I'm from a state called Tamil Nadu, where the state specifically stores this information on you are the actual owner of a land, like or the real estate, in a FoxPro database that's like 20 years old. A FoxPro database is a source of truth to say, I am the owner of this land. And there is a recent audit report that says 10% of the data is wrong. And I believe NFT is an amazing solution for that. You just need an immutable data store to say you are the owner of this real estate. If you take this particular example and go build a wallet for this itself is $1 billion opportunity, in my opinion. So I think we are in a very early stage. I don't believe a future exists where, oh, it's like one wallet that's going to serve the entire world. There could be one piece of the technology that might not necessarily be called a wallet. It could be a key management SDK or whatever people build in the future that might have a horizontal participation in all of the wallets. But I personally believe the way consumers consume the product, I strictly believe it's going to be super fragmented, because each of this fragmentation is like $1 billion markets. Like a decade back, if somebody had told you Robin would be a $10 billion business just building stock trading on mobile app, people would have laughed at you, right? And that's what we're going to see in crypto, is in my perspective. So I personally believe there's going to be quite a bit of fragmentation, and like financial institutions are going to reinvent, right? Just like the way traditional businesses computerized, a lot of financial institutions are going to like cryptoize or whatever you want to call it. And that's the only way for them to survive and serve their users, because users are going to need that.
Beautifully put. So the real world assets is a very interesting use case. I think there's other kinds of use case. For example, if you look at the NFTs today, they're mostly digital collectibles, right? And I'm not an art collector. I really cannot resonate with that on a personal level. That's why you see this wall is all blank, right? At least you have some beautiful stuff in your back. Actually, I printed out the artwork. It's just sitting on the floor here. I need to like at some point find time to like put it up on the wall. But if you look at even regular business process, like your accounts receivable and your accounts payable, those things are analog processes today. They still have a roll number. They're not truly digitally native. And so if you're able to put your invoices and your receipts and collect your receivables as NFTs, and then use NFT finance to put it down as a down payment, borrow against it, all of this just facilitates, just explodes in a use case. So, total addressable market, a lot of these pitch decks, the TAMs are like ridiculous, right? They say it's a 200 trillion market, and we're going to capture 0.1 of it, and therefore will be $100 billion business. A lot of those things are, just it's a joke. But I truly think in the next, I would say 20 years, every company will have digital assets on their balance sheet. Whether you're a crypto company or not, I think it's almost like there's no internet company really today, because everyone uses email. So it's not like internet enabled was a thing, was a novelty, maybe 15 years ago, no longer a thing. So I think crypto is going to be as ubiquitous as that. So I think very, very exciting future. I think, that's going to just, there's ample opportunities and ample problems to go after. Okay, I want to ask one more question, more on a personal level. You are a serial entrepreneur, so maybe your perspective is that this bear market is actually your comfort zone and you're thriving in a bear market, right? So the bull market is boring because there's too much competition, too much noise. It's hard for real products to stand out. But how are you dealing with the bear market, with all of the stuff that's happening? With it seems like just this week alone with Binance and Coinbase being sued, and it just day after day, it seems like the bad news is relentless. How do you manage your psychology? How do you manage your team's psychology? How do you continue building in a space which is so adversarial?
So I have two versions of answer to this question. One on like how it's my personal story on optimism versus like pessimism. The second part is like deriving energy from users. I'll talk about, and both is applicable to myself and my team equally. And the first part about optimism versus pessimism, naturally, like I've been a very pessimistic person. I don't know why, because of the adversities I've seen in my childhood with parents and stuff, but I've been a very pessimistic person. Every time I see something, it's so easy for me to think things are going to fail, right? But being in the tech industry, what I realized is I've been wrong every time, almost every time I've been pessimistic about something. And even if I'm right about certain things, I've only regretted that. So over time, being in this industry, I've developed this mentality of there is more reasons to be optimistic about technological trends, because this is one of these interesting things that no other industry has, where the small group of people can create a huge upside with very limited downside. Never existed ever in the history in any other industry. So that's one thing I've picked up over time. If there's more reasons to be optimistic than pessimistic, purely deriving from my own failures from being pessimistic about any technology trends, right? And even when I was wrong or right about that, I've always regretted, right? It's not about whether you're right or wrong about pessimism. You rather blindly be optimistic about certain things. But that blindly being optimistic about something is where you have to be a little careful. Because there are two types of blindly being optimistic. It's like saying, oh, crypto is like the replacement for like everything about money, because then you're becoming like religious. My perspective towards religion even comes here. You never should be religious about certain things. It's very important you question, very important you logically derive a conclusion, but it's very important to you optimistically derive that. So that's one part. And this is the first time in my life with all this learning, I'm getting an opportunity where I'm objectively being able to be optimistic about crypto. That's the first part. The second part, of course, every day I think about this. Oh, crypto is dead. Nobody's going to write me any check. Investors are running away. People are suing each other. But one fundamental place where I draw my energy from is my users. We have this inbuilt customer support, which I tell my wife, it's like my personal therapist. My users just ping me on customer support, and I just love talking to them. That always gives me energy. These guys are suing each other. There's bad news, but something I have built, users are pinging me and asking me. That means they care about this. And I derive immense energy by doing that. And that's what my team does, right? It could be a very small number. That's not the point. Like whatever you built is something that the users are loving, and they're just coming and like asking you questions, right? Hey, I want you to fix this. It could be a very small thing, but these are the two things that drive energy for me. I don't care about anything, right? There is so much negativity, you're right. Being this informed optimist and then deriving energy from users are two things that keeps me going in this industry in a bear market.
Amazing. The second point really resonates with me. Literally last night, past midnight, I saw this support request come in and I answered that support request. And we have a decent sized team, and there's someone else who can pick up the tab. But this person had there was a mistake in our documentation between basic authorization and another kind of authorization, bearer authorization. So one had a colon, one didn't have a colon. So it was a typo in our documentation, and this person was struggling. And I still, stepped in to answer that question, because it makes it very meaningful. I had a beautiful, like really nice night of sleep, I think, because of that positive energy in solving someone's problem, however minor it is. And that is definitely like oxygen for startups, right? Usage and feedback and so on. The first one is more of a joke here, where it's a missed opportunity for you. When I asked what is Cypher, you should have said, "Oh, we are reinventing capitalism," right? You could have just gone all out and said, but we'll leave it at that. Let's wrap up here. Any parting thoughts on to a builder in the space? How should they navigate the space? Maybe even think someone like yourself 10 years ago, just you see a lot of young builders across the globe, right? And we see that in our own user base. You see like there are these hacker houses in India that have 4,000 or 5,000 people come and show up and just hacking on stuff, right? So if you're a builder in the space and you're just starting out, embarking on this journey, what piece of advice you have to these builders?
Yeah. So one thing I would say is, like, you specifically asked like 10 years back what I wish I had been told. Because interestingly, when I graduated out of college in 2009, it was a very similar situation. Tech industry was in a very bad state, right? And right now we are seeing a really bad macroeconomic aspect, right? It's a blessing in disguise for the builders because you have nothing else to do. Like, are you going to get a job at Amazon? No, it's going to be a really bad time to go there. The macroeconomic factor is going to like keep everybody in like constant fear. Seeing this, talking to a lot of my colleagues from like all this big tech, right? And like it's even elsewhere. What else would you do, right? You have nothing else to do. So the world is going to suffer for the next 2 years. So luckily, the crypto winter is coinciding with that. It's a blessing in disguise. So if you're a builder, just understand the fact that nobody else is in a better spot. Period, right? It's a very easy thing that any human being can connect to. Nobody else. There's no FOMO here. Just nothing else to do. You rather be independent and do something that you enjoy. Period.
I never actually thought about that because I guess I've drunk the Kool-Aid too much. But when you think about it, there's no other field I'll be in because it's all a struggle. Like AI, yeah, it all seems flashy. Now all the AI, the AI investors are pivoting to AR with Apple's thing yesterday. So it's AR is the next leg. I don't know, but I have to like basically restart my learning process if I were to move to any of those things, and I only have like the leg up here. And so yeah, you're right. Actually, it's not the grass is always greener, but not really.
Yeah.
Incredible. Kuberan, thank you so much for your time. Very gracious of you to share your advice and your journey as an entrepreneur and the founding story of Cypher. I really enjoyed this chat.
Great. Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks for your time.